This series on time blocking is for those of you that feel like you're owned by your work instead of you owning it. I'm calling it time blocking if you want your life back. At its core, time blocking is simple. You divide your day into specific time slots and you assign each block a job. Or, as Cal Newport puts it, you give every minute of the day a job. Now, you're going to learn all things time blocking and you will be more productive. But more importantly, you'll see how time blocking helps you stop letting work decide when you're finished. Time blocking can help you increase your personal freedoms. Now, some of you may have tried time blocking and it didn't work. So let's talk about why time blocking may have failed you. Failure 1, your schedule is treated as rigid instead of adaptive. You 100% need to honor your schedule. If you schedule it in, then you need to take the time when it shows up. But the other side of the spectrum is also true. Your calendar can't be treated rigidly. You see, a rigid schedule ignores one of the most important things, which is called real life. Meetings can run long. A client calls in even though they didn't have an appointment. A mistake was made and now you have to take time to redo it. Life happens. We need to be able to honor our schedule while avoiding being rigid, because those rigid systems are going to break under the normal pressures of the day-to-day workload of your business. Time blocking needs to be adaptive to the curveballs that life throws at us. Okay, failure 2, you underestimate how long tasks are going to take. We assume best case scenario when estimating. Nothing wrong with being optimistic, but we have to have a healthy dose of realism. When you underestimate tasks, not only do you have the problem that you didn't get the task done during the allotted time, but now you have the second problem of figuring out where to squeeze in time to do the rest of the task. Mind you, that you have to do that with a schedule that has already assumed all your other tasks can get done in the time you allotted them. It's almost a near impossible situation that only ends up being solved by working more hours. Let's avoid all that and be more realistic on how long it will take us when we schedule breaks. And if you're looking for even more info on all this, check out my book. But failure number 3, you don't put buffer time between focus blocks. You've taken all that has to be done and you pack them back to back to back to back. No transition time, no thinking time, no space to breathe, no time for those unexpected things we talk about from having too rigid of a schedule. And no time to squeeze in going back to a task you thought you'd get done, but still need more time. So of all the mistakes, fixing this one may give you the biggest boost to your time blocking productivity. And keep in mind, I'm not referring to this white space as your recovery blocks. You still need dedicated recovery blocks as prescribed by the 3.3 rule. Failure number 4, ignoring unplanned work. After being 3 mistakes in, I'm sure you're already seeing the common themes. Failure number 4 is just a more specific way that failure number 1 of having too rigid of a schedule shows up. It's not a question of whether if unplanned work will happen, it's a matter of when it is going to happen. And by definition, if it's unplanned, you won't even know ahead of time. This is why having white space in your schedule makes a ton of sense. You have to assume it's going to happen and have time for unplanned and unscheduled things. Fixing failure 3 helps you fix failure 4. So make sure your schedule has white space. A cousin to mistake number 2, failure 5, is when you schedule based on aspiration and not capacity. Sometimes our calendars become the fantasy version of who we want to be, but not the reality of where we're at right now. So we build out our calendar based on who we want to be on our best day, instead of who we actually are on an average day. David Allen, author of Getting Things Done, critiques this as confusing intentions with real commitments. An intention is a wish, a desire. It's the shoulds, where a commitment is concrete, like a project, task, or action item. It's the difference between saying, I need to plan a vacation versus commitment to a time to research flight prices, hotel rates, and dates to block off for the vacation. Scheduling what we intend to do instead of what we can practically do in the same time frame leads to being overscheduled. And overscheduling leads to guilt because you've set yourself up with an impossible goal of getting all the overscheduling tasks and activities done which you can't do. So now you feel guilty. Because you overscheduled it, you don't have a lot of room in the coming days to fit in all the things you didn't get to on today's schedule. More guilt. All of which can be avoided if we are realistic in what we can get done and organized enough to know the actions we're taking instead of what we someday should do. Failure 6. You can confuse motion with progress, a gift bestowed upon us from hustle culture. Hustle culture has told us that if we don't have a full schedule, that we're lazy. Having that full calendar feels productive, doesn't it? Even if we don't take the time to determine if we should be working on all those things anyway. Full schedules, always being busy, can mask poor prioritization. Laura Vanderkam, author of Tranquility by Tuesday, talks about this a lot. She says that time reflects priorities, but it doesn't define them for you. That's your job. Being busy isn't the same as being productive, and if we aren't taking the time to properly prioritize our time, we end up spending time being in motion, but not actually progressing. Failure 7 is that you expect immediate perfection. And on the surface, time blocking sounds super simple. Block off your time for dedicated activities. But as you can see with all these other failures we've talked about, there are factors to consider. Am I estimating the right amount of time for this task? Do I have time for real life to happen and not get behind my scheduled priorities? Have I built in white space for the inevitable unplanned things? Most of us are terrible at something the first time we try it. Time blocking is no different. It may feel messy in the beginning, so we need to give it time for us to accept that we could have time blocked better, make the necessary tweaks from what you learned from the mistakes, and then adjust. This list is because I've made all these mistakes over my 20 years of experience. I certainly didn't have it all figured out in my first week. And last failure, number 8, only one day. This is when you are looking at your schedule and saying something like, I will only block time to take client calls on Tuesday afternoon. Sounds lovely. It actually reminds me of the suggestion I saw a ton of people implement from the book, The 4-Hour Workweek. Set up an autoresponder on your email and tell people you only check emails 2 times a day. Boy, that sounds fantastic. Sounds efficient. And when you're the client that gets that autoresponder, feel lovely about that response? No, it's annoying. You don't feel heard. You know it's an autoresponder as well. As the client, you're emailing that same person multiple times. You know you're going to get that same autoresponder every single time. It feels very inauthentic. Even if you are only checking emails twice a day, you don't have to tell the client about it. It's email. By definition, the world accepts that emails aren't the most urgent form of communication. My point is that sometimes things theoretically sound good, but have too many negative consequences to be a good idea to implement. So only having one day per week set aside to do something specific like client meetings is going to rub your clients the wrong way, and it isn't practical. What happens if the client isn't ever available on Tuesdays? Not a good customer experience. Now, in the next video, we'll talk about the last big failure of time blocking, but it's such an important reason that it deserves its own video. Again, the whole idea of this series isn't to have a perfect calendar. The goal is you getting your life back. And I think you can see when you consider these failures discussed here, these failures keep you from feeling like you have control over your work. You're always going to be reactive, and you're always going to feel like you have more to do than can get done. By properly executing time blocks, you take control back, and you will clearly see you have enough time to do exactly what you want to do. And if this idea of productivity leading to freedom resonates with you, that's exactly why I wrote my book. Because working better only matters if it helps you live better too. This is part 1 of the series. See you on the next one.